Think about this for a moment. If a beautiful girl came in front of you and just said one thing, "How are you?" Maybe you wouldn't forget that moment for 2 weeks. Maybe you would remember that scene again and again. Maybe you would smile repeatedly, thinking of it. Just one sentence, and a person changes from the inside. But think about this instead. If that same girl looked at your face and said that perhaps the world simply cannot love someone like you. Now think about this. If someone like that still refused to give up on life, then how small are our excuses? I don't know if this video is motivation or a slap to the face, but I know one thing for sure. If you listen to this entire story, then maybe tonight you won't be the same person who started watching this. Because today, you are going to meet someone who lived 71 years on nothing but a machine. Yet even then, he refused to give up on life. Let me ask you something that sits uncomfortable in your chest right now. How did a person survive 71 years inside a machine? I mean, really think about that for a moment. Not just as a question, but as a reality that someone actually lived. Try holding your breath for just 10 seconds. It's difficult, isn't it? That person couldn't breathe without a machine for his entire life, for 71 years. That word, difficult, doesn't even come close to describing what it meant to exist without the ability to breathe on your own. And yet Paul Alexander did exactly that for more than 7 decades in an iron lung. Take a deep breath. Feel how that simple thing works, how your lungs expand without you even thinking about it. That autonomy, that invisible gift, Paul never had it. Not once. Not in 71 years. But here's where the story stops being about tragedy, because tragedy is just the beginning. In 1952, a teenager named Paul Alexander woke up one morning feeling like he had the flu. His parents thought it was normal, a fever, something that would pass. But within hours, his legs went numb, then his arms, then his chest started to feel heavy, and then heavier. By the time he reached the hospital, paralysis had already claimed almost his entire body. Polio, the disease that would trap him inside his own skin for the rest of his life. You know what the doctors told him? They told him he would never walk again, that he would spend whatever time he had left lying in a hospital bed, that his life, the real, full, breathing, moving life, was essentially over. He was 14 years old. But something dangerous happened inside Paul Alexander's mind when he heard those words. Instead of breaking, he listened differently. Because here's the psychological truth that nobody talks about. Sometimes the biggest moments of human transformation don't come from inspiration. They come from desperation mixed with refusal. If your body stops working, do your dreams die too? Think about this carefully, because this is where everything gets real. Imagine your phone starts moving slowly. Would you break it immediately? No, right? Then why does a person break themselves when facing difficulty? See how easily we give up? A phone slows down and we curse it. Our body stops working and we surrender. We break ourselves over things that Paul couldn't break himself over. He couldn't quit, not physically, but also not mentally, because he had already made a choice that most of us never make. He chose to keep fighting, even when fighting became impossible. I will never give up. He didn't say that to inspire others. He said it because the alternative was unthinkable to him. Giving up would mean accepting that those doctors were right, that he was finished, that his life had ended at 14. Paul refused. And that refusal became his escape. Not from the iron lung. He could never escape from the iron lung, but from the prison that everyone was trying to build inside his mind. The iron lung itself. Do you understand what that machine actually was? It was a metal cylinder that covered his entire body, except for his head. When the air pressure inside it decreased, his lungs would expand and pull in oxygen. When the pressure increased, the air would leave his body. Breathe in, breathe out. Artificial, mechanical, 1,000 times a day, every day, for 71 years. Imagine that for a second. Your breathing controlled by a machine. Your entire existence dependent on electricity and mechanics and the hope that nothing malfunctions, that nothing breaks, that the power never goes out. Most people would collapse under that weight. But Paul learned to write. He learned to create. He learned to communicate. He learned to inspire. Who was this person who amazed the world? Think about the psychological power of that moment. Here was someone whose body was completely paralyzed, whose lungs couldn't work, whose world was smaller than most people's closets. And yet, he became a lawyer. He gave speeches. He inspired millions of people without ever being able to stand up or walk toward them. And here's the most dangerous thing. He wasn't just surviving. He was also inspiring others. How does someone do that? How does a person living in a machine become a symbol of human strength to people who are completely free? The answer is terrifying in its simplicity, because he refused to let his circumstances define his spirit. He inspired millions. But here's what most people don't understand. Inspiration isn't about motivational speeches or positive thinking. Real inspiration comes from watching someone be honest about their pain while refusing to surrender to it. Paul wasn't out there saying positive affirmations into a mirror. He was trapped in a metal cylinder, asking himself every single day, do I keep fighting or do I give up? And every single day, he chose fighting. Think about your own struggles right now. Whatever they are, whatever you believe is holding you back or breaking you down. Now imagine adding this layer. Not only do you have your struggles, but you also have to survive them in a machine. Physically dependent on technology, emotionally dependent on hope. Why do we break over small things? Seriously, think about what breaks you. What makes you want to quit? What makes you feel like you can't go on? Try this today. Turn off your phone for 15 minutes. Anxiety will start. And now think about this. That person couldn't even get up from his bed for his entire life. 15 minutes without your phone and you'll feel it. That anxiety, that need, that dependency. Now imagine a lifetime without the ability to even stand up, without the ability to breathe without help. And imagine not just surviving that, but creating meaning inside it. Stay strong. Because here's what Paul's story actually teaches us, beneath all the surface level inspiration. It teaches us that our strength isn't measured by our circumstances. It's measured by what we do when those circumstances try to destroy us. Paul's body was locked away, paralyzed, dependent. But his mind became more powerful than most people ever achieve. He learned languages, he studied law, he wrote, he communicated, he connected with thousands of people. He proved something that our culture doesn't want to hear. Your body can fail completely, and you can still be a force in the world. Is true prison the body or the mind? Because some people are walking free and they're completely imprisoned by fear. They're imprisoned by self-doubt. They're imprisoned by the voices telling them they're not good enough, not smart enough, not worthy enough. Some people walk free, but are still prisoners. And some people are imprisoned,
but still freer than the world. Paul Alexander lived in a prison of metal and mechanics, and he was freer than most people walking around without restrictions, because he had already made peace with the worst thing that could happen to him. He had already lost everything his body could give him, and from that place of complete loss, he gained something the rest of us are still searching for. Your mind is powerful. Understand that. Really let it sink in. Your mind is the one thing that can't be paralyzed. It's the one thing that can't be trapped. It's the one thing that can create meaning even when everything else is taken away. But here's the part that makes people uncomfortable. Paul's story forces us to ask a question we've been avoiding. If a beautiful life was in front of you, would you be worthy of it?
And I'm not asking if you deserve it. I'm asking if you're ready for it, if you're willing to do the work, if you're willing to face the discomfort of growth, if you're willing to fail. Most people say, my appearance isn't good, or I'm not lucky. But they're looking at this completely backwards. The real question is, have you ever tried with all your might? Have you? Really? Not the half effort, not the surface level attempt, not the thing you do while you're also checking your phone and wondering if it's even worth it, but the full, complete, all-in effort. Paul didn't have a choice about his circumstances, but you do. He couldn't walk away from his iron lung and find an easier life. But you can walk away from your comfort zone at any moment. And most of us do, constantly. We choose the comfortable lie over the uncomfortable truth. We choose the familiar failure over the unfamiliar attempt. Believe in yourself. But belief without action is just wishful thinking.
Paul didn't just believe he could create meaning inside his paralysis. He went out and did it. He became a lawyer. He got a degree. He wrote books. He spoke to audiences. He didn't do these things because he was lucky or because the circumstances were perfect. He did them because he decided that his circumstances would not define his contribution. And then there's another layer to Paul's story that most people miss. It's the part that breaks something inside you when you really understand it. How did that person even laugh? I mean this genuinely. How does someone who can't move their own body, who is dependent on a machine to breathe, who faces rejection and pity every single day, how does that person find the capacity to smile, to laugh, to bring joy to others? Think about it. The person who couldn't breathe on his own was giving others the courage to live. That's not inspiration. That's not motivation. That's psychological alchemy. That's the kind of strength that comes from somewhere so deep inside you that it becomes almost spiritual. Paul had a choice. He could have been bitter. He could have been angry. He could have told the world exactly how unfair everything was to him. He chose to give others courage instead. Keep smiling. Because that's what strength actually looks like. Not absence of fear or pain, but choosing to smile anyway. Choosing to encourage others anyway. Choosing to create anyway. Now, let me connect this to something that might seem like it has nothing to do with Paul's story, but stay with me. Do you still find learning English difficult? Because here's the psychological connection that nobody has ever made. Learning English is not actually difficult. Wanting to learn English while being afraid of failure is difficult. Attempting English while doubting yourself is difficult. But the learning itself, it's just practice. Do this one thing. Starting right after today, speak one sentence in English every single day. Just one. After 6 months, you won't recognize yourself. You won't recognize yourself. And you know why? Because you'll have built something that didn't exist before. You'll have created a version of yourself that can communicate in a language you thought was impossible.
How are you today?
Such a simple question. But see what happens when you answer it in English. See what happens when you push yourself to form those words. You're not just learning words. You're building confidence. You're creating identity. You're becoming someone new. And that's exactly what Paul was doing his entire life. He was becoming new. Every single day in that iron lung, he was choosing to become a different version of himself, not accepting the version that society wanted him to be, broken, limited, waiting to die, but creating the version of himself that he wanted to be, powerful, meaningful, alive. This is where the story gets dangerous. And by dangerous, I mean transformative. What if that person had given up? Think about this seriously. If Paul Alexander had given up, if he had listened to the doctors, if he had accepted the limitations, if he had decided that life in an iron lung was too much to bear, then the world would never know that inside a weak body can hide a dangerous spirit. We would have never known. The world would have been missing something it didn't even know it needed. Proof that the human spirit can't be paralyzed, that determination can't be trapped, that meaning can be created, even in the most impossible circumstances. Never stop fighting. Because this moment right now, this moment where you're experiencing this story, this is the moment where Paul's choice becomes your choice. You can hear this story and feel momentarily inspired, and then go back to your life exactly as it was. Or you can let it change something. The question is, what are you going to do with what you just learned? And that brings us to the final question, the one that matters more than all the others. And now, the real question. If a person lived 71 years inside a machine and could still love life, then why can't you? Why do you let small things break you? Why do you let temporary failures convince you that you're permanently incapable? Why do you accept limitations that Paul refused to accept? My life will change. That's not just a statement. That's a declaration. That's a choice. That's you deciding right now that you're not going to be the same person who started watching this video, that you're going to do something different, that you're going to push yourself, that you're going to create, that you're going to speak English even when you're scared, that you're going to pursue your dreams even when the path isn't clear. Because Paul did all of that from inside a machine. The truth that this story reveals is this: we are all capable of so much more than we believe. We are all stronger than we think. We are all more resilient than our circumstances suggest. We just have to choose it. Paul lived for 78 years. The last 71 of them were spent in an iron lung. And in all that time, he didn't just survive. He refused to let survival be his only story. He became a symbol. He became an inspiration. He became a reminder that human strength has nothing to do with physical capability and everything to do with mental determination. When you feel like giving up, think of him. When you think you can't do something, remember him. When the world tells you that you're limited, remember that a man who literally couldn't move proved the world wrong. And maybe, just maybe, you can too. If you're here at the end of this story and you're feeling something, whether it's hope or confusion or even anger, that's good. That means you're alive. That means you're capable of feeling. That means you have the raw material to change. So I'm asking you to do something. I'm asking you to keep watching, keep learning, keep pushing, keep believing in yourself. Comment below and tell me, what one thing are you going to do differently? What one sentence are you going to say in English? What one dream are you going to stop abandoning? And if this story moved you, if it changed something, if it reminded you that you're stronger than you think, please share it. Because someone in your life needs to hear this. Someone is giving up right now. Someone is accepting limitations that aren't real. Someone needs to know that Paul Alexander existed and that he refused. Subscribe if you want more stories like this. Stories that don't just motivate you for 5 minutes and then disappear. Stories that stay with you. Stories that actually change how you see yourself and the world. Because transformation isn't one moment. It's a series of moments. And this is yours. This is the moment where you decide if you're going to stay the same or become someone new. The choice was Paul's for 71 years. And every single day, he chose to become stronger. Now, it's your turn.